Hey guys, I'm probably gonna do one more video after this, and then I'll be done for a little while. This video, as I said in my last one, is going to be on an original film, and this film has no sequels. It has been remade once, and I don't know if I'd classify this as a horror film or not. It's more of like a thriller, and give you some hints. It was based on a book by Stephen King. It features Jack Nicholson, and it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. And it is The Shining. This film is a masterpiece. I mean, I don't think films today would not be, but they are now without this film. This is probably Stanley Kubrick's best film besides maybe 2001: A Space Odyssey or Full Metal Jacket. It features Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Danny Lloyd, and Scatman Crothers. This was Scatman Crothers' last film role. And I'm going to do a little movie and book comparison. I have read the book. Now, if you haven't read the book, the movie is nothing like the book. I mean, basically what Stanley Kubrick did was he took the basic plot of The Shining and made it his own film. The book tells a totally different story. And, I mean, if you've read the book and haven't seen the movie, I mean, be prepared for a shock. Just be prepared for an entirely different film. I mean, don't get me wrong, this film is a masterpiece. But, I mean, it's not, I think it's probably one of Stephen King's least favorably adapted films. Stephen King hates this film, and that's why he had a lot of part on the remake. It was a TV miniseries in the 90s. And, this film is a classic. And, you watch the making of documentary that comes with this DVD. And, you see Stanley Kubrick, the master at work. And, it's just amazing to see him at work. And, this film, people quote the line, "Here's Johnny," all the time. And, I don't really get scared by this film. When I first saw it all the way through, the only moment that scared me was the moment where where Jack Torrance goes into the bathroom and sees the woman in the bathtub. If you haven't seen The Shining, or if you don't know what it's about, I'll tell you what it's about. It's about Jack Torrance. He's going to the Overlook Hotel with his wife, Wendy, and his son, Danny. And they're gonna go to the Overlook Hotel, and they're gonna be caretakers of this hotel through the winter. And their son, Danny, happens to have this power called The Shining, where he can, sense things, and he has a friend named Tony, and he talks to his finger. And they go to the hotel for the first time, and Danny meets the cook, who also happens to be able to shine. And, the cook tells Danny that if there's any trouble going around, all Danny has to do is to call him in his mind, and he'll come. And so basically, throughout the movie, just Jack Torrance goes mad, and he tries to kill his family. And previously, a previous caretaker had killed his family in this hotel. And you're not really sure throughout the movie if Jack Torrance has been there or not, but then you find out at the very end that he has. Oh, by the way, the cook's name is Dick Halloran. And there's only one death in this movie, one on-screen death, and it's really long. It's over 2 hours and 23 minutes, and it's you just have to be really interested in either in Stanley Kubrick or Stephen King. I mean, it's just really long, and not every part of the movie is interesting. I mean, to me it is, because I've seen it so many times. I love it, and and do I wish that there would have been a closer adaptation from the novel? No, I don't. I mean, I am satisfied with this film. I mean, it kind of would have been interesting to see a better adaptation, but I'm happy with this film, and a lot of other people are. And I have not seen the miniseries remake, so I can't tell you if that one's better or not, which it probably isn't. Um, this film I'll give 5 out of 5. This film is a cult classic, and it's one of Jack Nicholson's best roles, besides maybe his role in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Batman, the original Batman. Shelley Duvall, she's not really famous for anything. Really, the only thing I'd ever seen her in before this was the live-action Popeye remake. And, you can't really say a lot about a film that's already been talked about so long. I mean, if you want more information about this film, go on IMDb. That's a perfect website to look up information. And, they don't give you a lot of information about this movie on the back. It's really, everybody talks about this film. Usually when I think of The Shining, I think of Jack Nicholson. I don't think of the novel at all. But this definitely has the Stanley Kubrick touch to it. Like the scene where Halloran is talking to Dan Lloyd about The Shining. There was reportedly over like 110 takes of that film, of that scene, meaning they did it over 110 times. This guy was nuts about retakes. I mean, to the point where Scatman Crothers, he plays Dick Halloran, actually got down on his knees and started crying. I mean, it was that bad. And Jack Nicholson was reportedly so tired he just when he got home just collapsed into bed. And they would work until 2 in the morning. And apparently, this film was delaying the making of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it was, I believe it was a couple months, overscheduled. And Stanley Kubrick was just a total dick to Shelley Duvall. I mean, when you watch the making of documentary, he picks on her almost all the time. And in the book, Wendy is a beautiful blonde who, she really has nothing to worry about. She basically gets everything she wants. In this movie, she's a black-haired idiot who cries all the time and has no life. Jack Torrance in the book is more of a man who he was traumatized by his father, and he is a heavy drinker, and he works out of college, and he goes to the Overlook to write a book, and which is, he does this in the film. And Danny, he doesn't talk to his finger in the book, but his friend Tony, shows him images, of the Overlook Hotel. And the novel, the novel is pretty boring. It's really boring. I mean, if you've seen the movie, I do not recommend reading the book after seeing the movie if you haven't seen the movie yet. I mean, if you've seen the movie, you could read the book, but just be prepared for really a totally different story. I mean, there are some moments in the book that are in the movie, but it's just not a decent adaptation. if you're a Stephen King fan, I really only think you're a Stephen King fan if you're a fan of his books, not the movies based on his books. But I mean, it's a good book. I mean, it's like interesting at the beginning and interesting at the end. And some changes from book to film. Halloran doesn't die in the book, and he dies in this movie. And the hotel actually burns down to the ground in the book, and it doesn't in this movie. And instead of there's no hedge maze in the book. It's just these hedge animals that come alive. And Jack Torrance is more of like a family man in the book up until the very end. In the movie, he's automatically lazy and weird. And it's a good film. I highly recommend seeing this if you haven't seen it yet. Even if you're a Stanley Kubrick fan, a Stephen King movie fanatic, or a Jack Nicholson fan, I highly recommend you see this film. This is a must. See Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.